That my computer's not taking.
Good morning, Chief. Welcome.
Morning, Mr. Mayor. Council members.
Good morning, Chief.
Mr. Jansky, how do you want to proceed?
I look like Homer Simpson.
Do you need to get to the network? Because if you do, you can plug right in. We all have network access up here.
Something about my computer's not reading one of the chief's presentations, but it does on Jeffrey's computer, so maybe I could just switch it out. But then he won't have access to the specific budget issues. I think...
Tom, I have mine. Do you want to?
It's not that critical.
What's that?
It's not that critical.
Not that critical? We'll make you copies of the...
There's no problem.
This is
Is there a hard copy of the Chief's presentation? Maybe someone can make a photocopy?
This is one of the departments, and we're building, as you can see, we're building on the departmental presentations that we're doing, and so we have a general one for the police department, but the chief spent a lot of time investing in a very specific one for the detective bureau. Okay, so we'll. All right, so Chief, we'll do this first, and then if we can ask questions, we'll jump to this. All right, Chief, why don't you just do an overview of, this is an overview of your budget, but you know what? Let's first do an overview of your staff levels. And you tell me you want to go back to, here we go.
Is there a corresponding set of pages in the J materials?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, my budget, the hard copy that was presented.
Okay.
Okay. My copy, all right, it's a little bit different than what you have in front of you. It's the same budget that you and Mr. Shoemaker have seen over the years. However, with the new council members, why don't we just go through the budget briefly and give them an idea of what we're talking about?
Go right ahead, Chief, of course.
Okay. I'm going to go line item by line item. I'll go through it rather quickly, but it'll give you an idea. In my budget, I first started off with office supplies, and this particular line item relates to miscellaneous office equipment, microfilming that's required of all police records, equipment for headquarter tours, pencils, litter bags for McGruff community services programs. Last year, the council approved $900. This year, I'm requesting $1,650. There's some additional expenses there with the tours for headquarters, different items, pencils, litter bags for Halloween, that type of thing for the children. Under line item 305, which is uniforms, this particular line item for the new council members, and I don't know if you have this budget in front of me. Okay. It's primarily a contractual issue here with replacement of damaged equipment, clothing for police officers during the course of duty. If they damage their equipment, they have to have it replaced, and the township, by contract, they replace it. Special police, that's our part-time police officers, uniforms for them, uniforms for the police explorers, and the EMS uniform. That's our new first aid squad members. That's an increase there, like $1,500 for the EMS people. As you know, we're continually hiring people for the EMS unit. We're trying to get that expanded. Actually, we just increased the coverage to Sunday, so it's basically 7 days a week now. They have someone on the road through the EMS unit. So those that line item covers uniforms and replacement of damaged equipment. Line item 309 is the K-9 unit expenses pertaining to the dogs. the food, the grooming, the training, medical expenses, certification, seminars, and various equipment. Last year, the council approved $4,000. This year, we're requesting $4,800. Basically, we're not looking for anything new here, it's just increasing costs with the various items. Actually, as we go through the line items here, Mr. Mayor and council members, there's nothing really new. We're just looking for increase in cost for the various items. Line item 328, which are honor guard expenses. Last year, as you recall, we eliminated any expenses for the honor guard. We took that out for budgetary reasons to try to save some money. This year, we're requesting the same that we requested last year. That's $8,665. And that's for the various flags, additional honor guard uniforms, storage cabinets, various training and equipment that they need. Under line item 313, which is photo ID, that's basically for our processing evidence ID work within the detective division. This includes photo supplies, ID equipment, fingerprinting materials, stuff like that. There's one additional new item in that line item from last year, and we're requesting 2 new file cabinets for the evidence room. So last year you had approved $6,030. This year we're requesting $8,037. Line item 317, which is weapons and ammos. Again, this is for the ammunition that's required for training and qualifications. As you know, there's a state mandate for training twice a year with all the duty weapons, shotguns, and various miscellaneous weapons that we do have. So there was an increase of $50 over last year. Specialized expenses. This money in this particular line item, which is 417, is money for narcotics, buying narcotics, doing undercover investigations. It's nothing different than any other year. In fact, last year you approved $3,500, and this year we're requesting another $3,500. New personnel expenses under 342. This particular line item is a substantial increase. As you go through the budget, we're requesting 4 new people for 2007, plus 2 replacements for people that retired. So if you go through my 5-year plan that I submitted to you, the 5-year projection, we had started last year this program where we're going to hire 2 additional police officers per year up until we get to the level where we need to be regarding, when the state police came down and did an analysis of the police department, they said we were 36 men understaffed. Obviously, we're not going to hire 36 people all at once. And the plan was to hire like 2 people per year until we get up to where we need to be. So last year we didn't hire the 2 people that we were supposed to hire because of budgetary reasons. They were in a budget, but late in the year they were cut out for monetary reasons.
Now, Chief, so Chief, excuse me, that's 4 new officers,
New
full-time
officers.
officers, plus 2 more to replace, 2 that are retiring?
Yes.
All right, so it's a total of 6, right? So,
altogether.
and these are actually street officers, they're not for that EMS unit, correct?
Right, street officers, yes.
Okay.
But the net number you need new to the department is how many?
It'll be 90, it'll be 4.
4.
4
Because the 2 that are retiring are obviously,
replacements. They're already
Replacements.
authorized.
Okay.
And I believe you have that chart in front of you, the departmental chart.
No, I don't have that.
That's the current chart. That's,
That's this sheet you're talking about, right, Chief?
Yes.
Okay.
that's the current chart. That's not proposed. That's actual authorized for 2006.
So, Chief, if you can get these, 4 new, how much closer is that going to bring us to the state police number?
32 short.
No, it's
No.
not 32 short.
I was like,
What-
it's pretty far.
When state police did their analysis back in 2003, that was the latest one we had, we were 36 short, and we had 75 people at that time. Right now, we have 95. So 16, we'll be down, we'll be still down to 12 people.
Okay.
The
Until
state police willing to help pay for some of these additional spots?
They just do the analysis. Okay. And that's, obviously, we can't hire that many people all at once. It's going to take years.
Mayor, if I may.
Sure, Mrs.
Will these additional hirees reduce our overtime?
I don't know if it'll reduce overtime. There's some other issues that are coming up that's going to actually increase the overtime.
I see here that our overtime, it says, Jeffrey, correct me if I'm, it says 2006 expended encumbered, 413,000
Yes, ma'am.
for overtime.
Yes.
And they're requesting 480,000 in overtime for the upcoming year, correct?
That's correct.
Chief, maybe, since that point is raised, you might want to discuss some of the court safety issues that have come up.
There's a new mandate coming out from the Office of the Administrative of Courts, which is going to require at least 3 police officers in court doing each court session. And obviously, that's going to be overtime. We have to have 2 officers at the main entrance with a metal detector and 1 officer inside the court at all times,
And why
Right,
do
these have to be, pardon me, these have to be
full-time.
full-fledged police officers, not specials, correct?
And that's going to be a substantial increase in our overtime.
Mayor, if I may.
Please.
And why do you say that that's going to incur overtime? It can't, because of contractual agreements, you cannot change the hours of the scheduling to accommodate this under normal hours without having it to go into overtime?
If you pull the officers off the road, then you're not going to have the coverage on the road. As simple as that.
Chief, just a question, though. If we have to have 3 that are in the court at all times, isn't there at least 1 that has to be in the court at all times now? There's 1 officer assigned to be in the
Yes.
courtroom.
Yes.
So it's really, you're adding, we've already got 1 in the court, so we got to add 2.
2.
And you're asking for 2 new hires, adds to staff. So wouldn't we, on a net basis, be at least at the same operating efficiency that we would have been in 2006?
No. You're looking at, you don't have the presentation that I prepared for
Okay.
the manager, right? The presentation elaborated on putting people in traffic and the detective division, okay? Not patrol.
Understood. So this net 2 adds doesn't bring us neutral, if you will, to cover this new court imposition.
No.
You want to reallocate people to different areas, notably, it sounds like traffic.
Traffic and detectives.
Okay. But maybe if you also don't mind, Chief, I mean, looking at the overtime, I'm certain there's good valid reason, I mean, some of it's out of your control, but, I mean, it is a pretty material increase. It's a 113% increase in overtime. I mean, putting the court aside, that certainly is going to be a piece of it, but what else are we anticipating, or what are the driving reasons, aside from the schedule, which we know is not going to change?
Some of, if I may just comment on a couple of them, Mayor, is if there's ever a workers' comp issue, which really reduces our workforce, then we have to, and there's a need, we have to draw on overtime to fill the slots. That's one, and not only, and officers are out for other reasons as well, sometimes even as far as disciplinary matters are concerned. So you sort of have to budget for that overtime for those unanticipated cases. And then other things pop up. For example, this year we provided the crossing guard service over at for Pop Warner.
Of course.
And that required an overtime situation.
This is an ongoing, if you look back, the original budget for last year was 225,000.
Right.
So evidently that already was not a realistic number in last year's budget, because we've incurred 400,000. The 113% you talked about was calculated on the
On the
original
225.
appropriation of 225, yes.
We've incurred 400,000 in overtime on a $225,000 budgeted item,
Yes.
and that's not counting the remainder of this budget year?
That's for the entire year of '06.
That was all of last year.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, last year we budgeted 225,000, and as it turned out, we wound up spending because you can't, obviously, I guess, there are some things outside the chief's control. One was spending 413. So you're saying the 113 obviously is on a numerator and denominator of 225
Right.
over 480, which really what you're saying is it should be 413 over 480.
Well, if you're going to look at actual expenditures to what, next year's budget is.
It's really like a 14% increase over last year's actual number. But the number we budgeted for was only 225, but it ended up being 413. So we're really looking at a 14% increase over last year. Is that correct, Chief?
That's correct.
I would also draw your attention to the a full-time personnel budget for 2006, and note that that wasn't fully expended in 2006. And a lot of that had to do with things like workers' comp issues and disciplinary issues where we needed to draw in overtime.
And anticipating the next question we're going to get, there is a substantial increase in the appropriation there. And on the next page, if you notice, Homeland Security is now inside cap for this year. It's no longer outside cap. So the $736,000 or whatever appropriation from last year's budget has been folded back into the police budget.
Jeffrey, for the benefit of our new council members and the public, could you please just kind of explain what outside and inside cap refers to?
Okay. There is a cap within the state statute that provides that increases shall not be, budget appropriation shall not increase in total over 2.5% basic. We can go by ordinance to 3.5%, and there are certain exceptions that the cap does not apply to. And the state defines what exceptions there were. In the last 3 years, insurance and Homeland Security have been one or two of the list of exceptions we have, and they have both been brought inside cap for this year.
So it's a sort of so there's a separate outside cap budget because oftentimes those are funded by grants. So the idea is not to work against what the town's been allocated because a new grant program's been created. So it allows you to create this sort of separate out-of-cap budget.
You have a question?
I have a statement.
Okay.
I've been here probably the longest, sitting here, and I've seen an overtime problem. I don't want to call it a problem. I've seen overtime in this department from the very beginning, and it has escalated from, I think from the first year I came here, it might have been in the 100,000s, and we're in the 400,000s. My question and my concern is, are we finding an answer for the overtime? Is the answer to hire 20 new people? Have we looked at, have we really taken a good, hard look to alleviate this overtime, not just for the dollar amount, but for the hours? I mean, what does an average officer work when they work overtime? Are they working 10, 12, 18, 20 hours? And is there a safety issue in that respect? Or are you saying they're working overtime where they would work four 10-hour days, or are they working 6 10-hour days in a row? I'm not sure what that entails, Chief. But my question is, as a senior member sitting here, I have seen that number quadruple. So it's, we started out in the hundreds of thousands, now we're in the 400,000s. Are we truly sitting down and taking a hard look? And it's also a safety issue. We want to know, should we look at hiring 20 new officers? Is that going to alleviate the overtime? I've been sitting here and I can tell you that I've never got never a definitive answer to that question. Chief, I've asked that question, I think every budget time. What is the answer here, and where do we stop, and how far do we go? Because as I said, over the course of the 6 or 7 years I've been here, we have gone from 100,000 up to, now we're in over 400,000. I think we need to take a good, hard look at this and, find an answer to, find a solution to this situation. And always, keep in mind the safety issue here in our community. I think this is something that is probably more important than land preservation at this point, because this is a health and safety issue. And if we do need to, in turn, hire 20 new officers, But I think this is something that we should dedicate some time to, this particular situation, because of the fact, in light of the fact that our overtime has escalated, and keep in mind, the tax situation here in the community, and the dollars amount that we're spending here. It's money well spent, but we need to take a good look at, where we're heading.
Are there answers, Chief? Is there another way to look at this?
Next time you do contract negotiations, you might
Yeah.
want to take a hard look at it. I mentioned
We
that
did this
last-
past time, and we came to impasse. And we
We
did
tried.
make efforts, and we had a good faith collective bargaining process, but we made this an issue, the schedule. And
And I
so you're
think-
saying it's
I
all
think-
about the schedule?
I think you know that during contract negotiations, I did raise that issue.
You
We
did.
did push very hard for this particular overtime situation. However, if it's in the contract, you're going to have to pay it. And you can either put a realistic figure in the budget, or you can put an arbitrary low figure in there, and you're going to exceed it.
To Mrs. Showmaker's other question, if we added more than the 2 that you're looking for, how many additional officers would need to be added in light of the inefficiencies of the schedule and just pure overtime? How many more officers would you need?
I have to sit down with Jeffrey and calculate that.
But wasn't it 6? I mean, I thought there were 2 to replace, 2 to retire, and 4 others we were asking for. Is it 6 or is it
Four new,
4
4
new.
new?
2 replacements.
4
2
new and
replacements.
2 replaces. But if you got the 4, I mean, I think we should know. If for some reason you wind up getting 4, this number probably contemplates you getting 4.
Yes,
Yeah, and you still need almost $500,000 in overtime.
yes.
So how many additional, beyond the 4, do you need to get to make 480 become something that is, at least in my judgment, more
Well, like I
realistic?
said, I would have to sit down with the CFO, calculate what it costs per new employee, total cost, right, versus the overtime.
Because there could be an argument that's made that says when you add up the expenses of salary and all of the other fringe benefits that go along with it, and new police cars and equipment expenses, and then the added health insurance and pension obligations, that maybe we're better off doing it this way.
Yes.
And we don't know the answer
That's
to that.
right.
I think we need you guys and gals to tell us the answer to that.
Okay, that is a point for our analysis.
So does the
ongoing.
council want to get that analysis?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Agreed?
I would love to sit down and figure out what to do here.
Well, I think, Mr. Chianetsky, you've heard the direction, and Chief, the council at least needs to have the facts to address the overtime issue. There's 1 or 2 ways to do it. We either pay $480,000 in overtime, or we go beyond hiring 4 people, and what would that do to your overtime budget? But on a net ROI basis, what are our short and long-term obligations going to become by bringing on not 4, but maybe 8 new officers?
What is the contract till?
We just
Excuse
signed it
me?
last year.
Excuse me?
What was the question?
When does the contract expire, Chief?
When does it expire?
2009.
So it's only in 3 years. 2009. It was a 4-year contract and it was signed a year ago?
Was
Was-
it
was
4-year or
it-
5-year?
I believe it was a 4-year contract, and it was signed several months into the effective date
Right.
of the contract, because we came to impasse.
Well, when does it go back to? Does it go back to the day the old contract expired, Mayor?
It does.
Right?
Right.
When did the old contract expire? Does this one end January 2009 or December 2009?
December 2009.
December
I believe it's December
2009.
only. All right, what else, Chief, do you want to share with us?
Do you want me to continue through
Oh,
line items?
please, go
or
right
do,
ahead. It's up to you guys, sure.
I mean,
don't
if
wanna-
the other council members feel comfortable, I mean, I don't have to go through it.
Well, do you want does anything else with respect to the line items, anything else jump out that any council member would like to ask the chief? Either A, a description of what the expense is all about, because sometimes they're abbreviated and it's hard to figure out what it means, or is there any concern with respect to an increase or decrease?
I do have a question both for Chief and Mr. Filiaccio. There's 9.8 million in full-time personnel. I do realize that, 800,000 almost was taken over from Homeland Security. 740,000 was taken over. Is that pension cost, salary increases and things of that nature besides the new employees, Chief?
You have to ask the CFO about the Homeland Security.
CFO. Is that 9.8 million the department request for 2007 from 7.583 million? Does that take into consideration pension costs,
No,
health costs, just salary
just
increases?
salary.
Oh,
All
okay.
all the health benefits and pension are in a separate
Separate.
consolidated line item somewhere in these pages.
I didn't understand
Pension-
your question. Okay.
Okay, and pension cost also?
Pension
nothing
costs
to
are
do
a
with
separate
this.
line item.
Separate line item. So between salary increases, taking out Homeland Security, and added people, we're looking at 1.3 million?
Good math.
We're looking at 1.3 million? I'll ask you again.
Yes, Joe?
That's a function of
It's
a
good math,
variety
yeah.
of things. It's the contractual increases that we all collectively agree to in the contract. It's increases in base salary from the step perspective.
Yes.
I think that's what it is. I mean, these
That's
are all
contractual.
contractual increases.
And then, if I just can jump in for a second, if we continue our overtime the way it has historically gone, by the year 2009, we are going to be into like $615,000 in overtime. So, I mean, we just need to take a good, strong look at this and find out, where are we heading?
Chief, I do have a question with respect to the new personnel expenses. If you're contemplating 4 new officers, that number is about 46,000. Maybe you can give us a description of what goes into expenses. Is that certain
Under-
pieces of equipment? Because at that rate, it's about $11,000 a person.
You're talking about line item 342?
Oh, boy. Yes, yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. The hiring of new police officers during the year, medical expenses, $400 each. Psychological expenses,
Okay.
$400.50.
So it's those
each.
kinds of expenses, not, it's not new ammunition, it's not new
No, it's,
weapons or equipment?
Academy training,
Okay.
uniforms.
Any other questions from the council on any of these line items?
Mayor, if I could, Chief, you anticipate only 2 officers retiring this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Weapons and ammo. It went from 700 to 17,000, Chief.
700.
I'm looking at something here from 700 to
It's
17,000.
not weapons ammo.
What line item is it, Mr. Walsh?
317.
317.
Yeah, it shows a,
Extend-
Chief, it shows a number of $708 going to $17,325. It shows an increase of 1,258.82%.
It
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah, I'm glad
Okay. Let me explain that,
okay.
okay? What was approved was $17,275.
right, look one column over to the left.
Yep.
The chief's right.
And what was encumbered was $708.
What happened was, towards the end of the year, when there was a freeze in purchasing, we did not purchase ammo towards the end of the year in 2006,
Okay, sir.
okay? The money was transferred to other departments.
That was at my request, or the manager's request.
Right,
And he
you
had
get
enough
budget
ammo in
transfers.
stock to carry him to the end of the year. We asked him not to replenish the stock in the late
Oh, so you
part of
wanted
the
to do
year.
it then.
So if that's the case, do we need another 17,000?
No.
So the
We-
number in here, the
We're
17,
not going to have the supply that we had, obviously.
but you don't
well-
need 17,000.
Well, we can use, no, we need 17,325. We don't need another 17,000 on top of that.
That was taken.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for the chief? Is there capital we need to talk about?
They were looking for building improvements, and we'll cover that under buildings and grounds.
There is an item that says police cars, 5,000.
That's under 317, that's the line item, not capital improvement.
Yeah, I'm looking at actually 615. On our budget, it says
615, yes,
police cars, right?
that's not capital.
Right, because yours don't, unfortunately, can't go under capital. So how many, what were you looking for? by way of
These
vehicles?
are not regular police vehicles. I'm looking for 5 smaller version, compact versions for Detective Division. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the Township Mechanic has taken a lot of our vehicles offline for safety reasons. The vehicles that he has taken offline, we came out of patrol, eventually went to the Detective Division. They're 1993s, 1994s, 200,000 miles on it. We got our money's worth out of those cars, but For safety reasons, he did take them offline, and I'm looking to replace them, not with full-time or full police package vehicles, but compact vehicles for detectives.
Mr. Filiatro, is this a year where we can finance these through the MCIA?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
As a matter of
For the
fact-
benefit of the new council members, could you explain that program?
Yes, there is what is referred to as Monmouth County Improvement Authority, which is a division of the county government, created through the Monmouth County government, that is designed to do capital improvements throughout the county on a co-op basis. One of the nice things that happens here is the freeholders in Monmouth County have agreed and to guarantee the bonds at the county level, in addition to the fact all participating towns that do participate in the program do guarantee their taxability to the like you would for a normal bond. With the county guarantee, we automatically get a AAA rating. So the interest factor is very low. In addition to that, they borrow the money all at once and they invest it until the money is spent, and use that investment money to offset interest. Our 2005 interest costs on the equipment lease program this past year ran about 2.3% in interest rate, which is
It's fabulous.
very competitive borrowing. What we have done in the past, dealing strictly with police cars, it's an equipment lease purchase program that they do every other year, and they have more leeway than municipalities have. They're not subject to the local bond law as strictly as municipality is, where we cannot bond for passenger vehicles. They can. What we have done in the past is every year that the Monmouth County Improvement Authority comes up with this equipment lease every odd number of year, is actually we've been buying the chief a 2-year complement of cars.
Right.
We've been paying them off in 2 years. We have not been trying to fund them over any longer than their lifetime. But we get the cheap interest rate, we get them outside of his budget, we get them outside of the budget caps, and we get them at a relatively, cheap interest rate as far as bonding, and 2% over 2 years is not a big cost.
And in fact, I'm going to recommend, and it's really the council's decision, but we need new fleet. It sounds like we need new passenger vehicles for the senior services operation. So to the extent that ultimately they get approved, if they qualify as passenger vehicles, we should be buying that through the County Improvement Authority as well, because
Well-
of all of the reasons you described.
All equipment slated for this year, I'm going to recommend
Go through that process.
that we go through Monmouth County. It's a
Good.
much cheaper borrowing than the town can do on its own.
Does anyone have any questions for the chief on these 5 vehicles that he's asking for?
No.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief?
No.
Mr. Chansky, anything else on
Mayor,
police?
just for the benefit of the public, and we certainly know that you're interested in a long-term strategy to deal with the overtime situation, but I do want to point out that the overall salary and wages came in within the budgeted amount that was
course.
last year, and I just think that's an important point to stress, because that means that the chief, the finance officer, and myself need to do serious budget work when it comes towards the end of the year to stay within that discipline and guide that you've given us. But we understand your concerns, because I think what you're saying is, are we getting the most value for our community because of the overtime situation? And we'll try to do an analysis, and that will perhaps at least put us in a position to, for next time we go into labor negotiations, if there's nothing we can do immediately. But we understand you want us to look at that seriously.
Anything else for the chief? Chief, we'd be remiss if we didn't say while you're in our presence, thank you. You and your department, our class act, do a great job. So, as always, thank you very much to you and the entire department.
And just, and we always try to, when we do the budget, we always try to point to the value that the residents get. And, this year we're named one of the safest communities in the nation for our type and our size. And I think that's something that needs to be acknowledged.
I'd like an investigation into those 5 people that voted for 5 towns ahead of us, Chief. Okay?
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Mayor, there's another budget that goes with the police department, the
Okay.
911 budget. Did you want to discuss that?
What other budget is that, sir?
911.
So that following page,
911?
That's separate from the
Yep.
regular police budget for...
Is there anything out of the ordinary you need to share with us, Chief?
No.
Any questions from the new council members in particular about why this is separate, or we all comfortable with this?
Maintenance, any particular reason maintenance is up $20,000, chief?
Maintenance contracts
Maintenance contracts that have to be done on the equipment?
on the radio equipment, yes.
On the equipment, right?
Anything else for the chief?
No.
Okay, Chief, thank you very much. We appreciate you
Okay,
coming out.
thank you.
Feel better, chief.
Mr. Chernetsky, who's up next? Mr. Kramer?
Yes, Mr. Kramer, Public Works and Buildings and Grounds.
They're coming up together?
Yes.
Okay.
Or, yeah.
All right, gentlemen, come on up.
Public Works begins on page J14. There's capital all over the place.
It's capital all over the place.
Actually, G2, yeah, it's a big long list
Capital
of
all
it.
over.
Mayor, is this the last?
This is it.
Sample?
Mr. Chernetsky, unless the council disagrees, I think it's safe to assume we're not getting to your budget today. You okay with that?
That's fine.
Good.
I'll just assume you approve it.
I would assume that, sir.
You know what happens when you assume, Tom?
Hello, Mr. Kramer.
Good morning. How are you?
How long have you been here now?
A little over 6 months.
I have to
I
say,
think I'm almost broken in.
I'd have to say, and it would be inappropriate if I didn't acknowledge you, I get more nice emails about how terrific you have been, and it is a real pleasure. So thank you very much.
Well,
The
I-
residents are noticing it.
Thank you for the
People
compliment.
don't often write
Yeah.
me emails to tell me something is working well. It's usually to tell me that
other
something
way.
isn't going well. And I've gotten several unsolicited emails about your timeliness, your responsiveness, how hands-on you are. So, good job. Thank
Okay,
you.
but the credit goes to the staff. We really have a very astute and well-qualified staff here.
And he's politically smart as well.
Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Just talk about what
Okay.
department consists of.
Okay. What we try to do here is two things. Well, Major, to give you a quick overview of what the department does, the size of our current staff, what we're seeking, and the guts of our talk today is some capital equipment purchases. So we'll begin with basically this gives you a quick breakdown of who we have staff-wise in the department. You can read management, administration, streets and roads, our fleet maintenance department, buildings and grounds, recycling efforts, and the Clean Communities for part-timers, our grant. Total, sum it up, that's fine, thanks. We did a quick survey to see what the manpower changes have been over the last 6, 7 years, and as you can see, the department stayed just about the same, decreased a little bit, and stayed basically the same manpower as we had in 2000. Our service growth, this is what we're trying to get accomplished. These are what we can expect to come online as a direct impact, a service that we're going to have to complete this in 2007 and 8, and the Bonham sports fields, 16 new developments with additional retention, detention basins. That's the mowing, maintenance of infrastructure and the surrounding common areas. We did also total on that acreage. Currently mowed acreage is over 150 acres of basins. It's quite significant. The impacts that the new developments coming online, many of them have already been completed in construction, but they're just the final overlay, some litigation, whatever. We spent quite a bit of time with Bill Nunziato and Tom Savino and staff to make sure we had an accurate picture of what's coming on now and would impact us at this time.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to jump in 1 second and go back to this slide. In terms of the road crew, just to show you, we've been fairly consistent in the number of personnel we've had. And what we did yesterday is we had engineering in our office with Public Works, and we wanted to identify, since 2000, how many new subdivisions have come online, meaning we're responsible for the plowing, the leaf pickup, the recycling, so on and so forth. And they totaled perhaps in the neighborhood of 5 or 6 new since 2000. And then, so those are circled in red, and you're free to look at them later on, and we're developing a nice map 4-year package, but we just developed this yesterday. But what we were really interested in doing is projecting what we're going to be responsible for in future years, what's coming online. Now, these are things that have been in the works for a number of years. For those of you who serve on the planning board know, but it is conceivable that up to 16 subdivisions can become our responsibility within the next 2 years.
Do you have any Tums? Any indigestion?
Now, if we take into consideration a couple things here, the bottom fields, we can dedicate one person full time in the summer months to the mowing of that on a schedule that's going to require as a new field. So that's going to be absolutely, a new person for that is going to be required. When we think about these new subdivisions, most of them come with basins. Ultimately, they also require recycling services, bulk pickup, street clearing. Leaves not so much right now because the trees are very young. But that also bear in mind, though, that trees do age. And some of our subdivisions that have been approved maybe 10, 15 years ago when they came online, those trees are maturing. And that just adds to our load of leaves that we have to pick up. So council authorized a new leaf vac last year, and we want to create a new route. So we're going to have to staff that piece of equipment, the new route. And we've just gone out to bid on the lake dredger, for which we've received a grant for and was supplemented by capital, and there's 4 lakes we're going to be maintaining. So I'm very confident in saying we need more help in public works at this point. We're also doing as best we could outsourcing things. We are relying perhaps in ever-growing significance on private contractors to plow these roads. So we're doing everything we can in that area, but there is but we have to spend more time managing them. The guys who are out there in their routes managing the contractors as well. So the department is growing and they need more help. What Jeff was proposing were 2 new full-time and 2 part-time employees. Now,
I'm sorry, 2 or 4?
4 new full-time and 2 part-time employees. One of the, I think, we need some help in the area of car maintenance in a garage, but the full-time employees recognized are also going to be shared with the Parks and Recreation Department. Parks and Rec is responsible for plowing the bottom fields and the basins as well, but the idea is when they're not doing that, they'll be able to assist in public works in terms of leaf collection, plowing, and any sort of buildings and grounds issues we might have. So realize 2 of these employees are going to be shared with Parks and Rec.
Tom, if I could ask you a question real quick. You figured that it would take 1 individual for grass cutting at the bottom track?
That's what I was told, yeah.
I would have thought it would have taken 2. I don't know if there's OSHA standpoint where I don't know if it's a good idea to have 1 person out there on a piece of equipment like that in case, God forbid, something happens to him, he's out on his own.
Mr. Howell, that's very astute, and indeed, it'd be more than. We try to boil it down into like man hours that we would assign there, but you're absolutely correct that we would have to platoon that
Right.
responsibility.
I know from my daughter playing in travel leagues, and Mr. Walsh does as well. You're saying that cutting the grass in the summer hours, but I would just think that the bottom track, you're looking at putting people there from the May 1st until probably November 30th to maintain it through softball and soccer. Soccer ends at the end of November, so it's not really just June, July, and August.
You go from April to October anymore.
March.
March to November.
So,
So you're really
you
talking
know,
about...
and then, how is it going to work with organizations that use those fields on the weekend? Are we going to have to staff, like, are we going to have to staff the bottom tract on a weekend?
Yeah.
And then,
We are going to have to do some of those things, and we'll be better prepared to talk about that when we do the Park and Recs budget.
okay. I'm just trying to get an idea of the 4 new
right.
people and one for, you know, I'm trying to, in my head, say, just one for there?
But for now, for this coming year, those fields aren't going to be used.
Right.
Coming into this growing season. What we now need to do is just make that turf strong and properly care for it for this year, and it's not going to be used, so we don't really have to get into issues of lining and trash collection and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
All right. I have a couple little things here that I would like to ask Mr. Kramer. I've spoken to some elected officials from other municipalities that would be interested in leasing our lake dredger if they knew when it would. Is there any way we could put together a calendar over the next 2 or 3 years?
It's an excellent idea. I think that Bill Nunciato should be really, he's been taking the lead on this project well before I came here.
Oh.
And we have a pretty good
We
parameter
had-
of what we need to do to operate it and accomplish the dredging they want to do. But it's certainly that's a win-win for everybody.
Mayor, if I might, I believe that when we discussed purchasing this, that was part of the purchasing
Yes.
agreement,
You'd
that
already
we would do
anticipated
shared
that, yeah.
services with other communities, possibly the county,
Correct.
yes.
So I think the Deputy Mayor's point is we want to make sure it gets executed. So the way to do it is to have a schedule of when these other towns can in fact begin to use it. And I apologize, I had to step off for a second. Has it arrived yet?
No, we're currently, we've accepted bids, so,
Okay.
and we've awarded a bid. We've actually awarded a bid, so
Okay.
now we're awaiting delivery.
Do you have more questions, Mr.
Yeah,
Wall?
and one other thing with the lake dredger, and it was debated pretty in-depth from some time before I got here, and then when I did arrive in November of 2005, and we will also be saving hundreds of thousands of dollars a year every time we use the dredger, from how much they were bidding to do our lakes was just astronomical cost. I think the closest bid we got to do the one lake was $160,000 over what we were willing to spend. So we'll be saving hundreds of thousands a year every time we have to dredge a lake from having this equipment and using our own people.
Can we go back to basins for a minute? This has been sort of one of my pet peeves, if you will, and this has gone back over the years in terms of the best way to handle it. Mr. Panic, who had been our tree expert, had recommended some while back, and I think most professionals had agreed, that we need to get out of the basin management business, and I'm a big advocate of that, and that they need to be filled with the right kind of shrubs and greenery that grow in such a fashion that they absorb the water naturally, and they don't need to be mowed with these expensive lawnmowers that need to be purchased in order to do it. And quite frankly, in fairness to Mr. Czerniecki, we've hit him with 954,000 things, and this is probably 95401, but I think we need to have, and this isn't the time to work the issue, but we've got to come up with a way for basin management. I sit at the planning board along with Councilman Howell, and Mrs. Showmaker served there for many years. We just keep inheriting more and more and more detention basins, and I just keep visualizing more people cutting grass on expensive lawnmowers that we can't afford to buy and repair. So I don't know what the answer is, and you don't have to give us the answer now, but I think council agrees we've got to have a basin management plan.
Mayor, real quick, I'll just jump in for one quick second. I think Mr. Czerniecki will recall, I think I brought it to his attention through when I was a planning board member, and it's been a pet peeve for 8 years because I hate that we're in the basin business, and Helene knows that from my years of griping, that there is a program out there, ecological program, and I think, just briefly, we spoke some months back, Mr. Czerniecki, when he first came on, along with our engineer and planner. Someone had brought it to our attention at the planning board. So I believe that is somewhat in the making.
We have a couple ideas here. We're actually starting to implement them in some respects. I understand the spirit in which you say we have to get out of the basin business, and but for the time being, from our perspective, where they're assigned to us, so we have to try to manage them the best we can. and the new stormwater regulations also really place additional restrictions in terms of the kind of design you can do in terms of the landscaping in these basins and whether or not they need to be sand infiltration basins. That the new regulations have really complicated that approach. But one of the things, and for those council members who sit on a planning board might be able to help us in this regard, when a developer completes his subdivision, the basin looks like a park-like setting. And they manicure it, and they put it on what we call the A schedule. And then when we take over the basin, we put it on the B or C schedule, meaning they don't get it every week necessarily, they might get it every 1 or 2 weeks, but the expectation has already been raised. And so I think we want to work with the applicants when they come in to make it clear that perhaps not the whole basin ought to receive that treatment. Maybe the edges of the basin ought to receive that level of treatment, and the interiors of it, the grass can grow a little bit more. And what we would like to do is we would like to start moving, and perhaps council down the road might consider a policy giving us the authority to not do basins completely all the time. But to do like the periphery of them, maintain those very nicely, but then let the interior grow and maybe hit those 2 or 3 times a season, because we're now approaching, I think, in a neighborhood of 51 basins we have to maintain.
Real quick, Mayor, if I may, why can't that be incorporated, and I know we spoke about this, why can't that be incorporated in some type of a design standard? But I can't remember if that crosses our land use ordinances, but why can't we incorporate something like that in our design standards under basins?
Yes.
So that the planning board knows where we're going with this, because this has been an ongoing problem for years because of the maintenance issue.
I think that we could work on something
Okay.
like that. I will write a memo to the chairman and asking them to make that an agenda item.
Okay.
Okay, what else, gentlemen?
Okay. Jeff, maybe you can summarize what you're asking for. In terms of dollar figures, additional, well, for streets and roads, the total budget increase that's being requested is approximately $2 million, or a 13% increase. For vehicle maintenance, approximately $915,000. And solid waste recycling, $712,000. You have the specific worksheets with you. But that sort of speaks to the employees that we're looking for, by and large. Just to get a little bit into the capital equipment requests. In 2006, council approved a salt barn, a lake dredger, a salt spreader, a leaf vacuum, and a basin vacuum. And that gives you the status of those projects. We've decided to redesign the barn based on what's more of a contemporary kind of practice. It's a different design. It's not the dome
No more
that
dome.
we're accustomed to. No one's doing that anymore, so we decided we're going to redesign ours. The lake dredger's been awarded. We're anticipating delivery of that. The bid's been awarded for a leaf vac. We're waiting for delivery of the vase and back, and we're still working on our next salt spreader. Jeff, maybe you can discuss the status of our street sweeping operations.
Okay, currently we have 2 street sweepers, and since I've been here 6 months, only one is operating. This is a picture of our older unit. It's basically hasn't run one day. It's got some major problems. It was re-welded by Frank Cerbone and his staff several years ago because the body just rusted, the capture part of it rusted out. It's a mechanical type sweeper. Our newer one that purchased a number of years ago is a air regenerative, which does one pass, cleans it. Basically, the machine has little or no value. It leaves more dirt on the street than it picks up. What we're saying here is with all the equipment, we're asking for its replacement only, not new equipment, replacing what we have. If a resident were to call me, and several have, and said, gee, my street's doesn't look good. And I told the resident, I said, you're absolutely right. They said, when can I expect the street sweeping? I said, well, we'll divert the truck over there and do it. But I said, you probably won't get swept again for over another year. With a one sweeper, It's just, we can't even touch. What we'd like to do is get rid of this ancient piece of iron and purchase another modern sweeper like we have and put into place a regular sweeping program so everybody can be guaranteed that their street gets swept on a regular basis. It might only be once every 6 months, but our current standard is just, it's just not there. As you know, catch basins, when they're upgraded or roads repaved, the gutter mounts have to, the new trash racks have to be installed on those, and it just really, if there's wind-blown recycling or trash down the street, well, it doesn't wash down the storm drain, which is great, but there it remains on the street. So I think it's a, this is something, a very high priority this year.
So you're saying the street sweeper's high priority?
Yes, it is.
Number 2 priority, right?
I didn't, these are not necessarily in priority order here. I typed up a list. What we did is we came up with a 5-year plan. We tried to put in what we thought this year was the most important. There's quite a few items, and then we did, you don't have a copy of this yet. And then over the following 4 years, to give you an idea what we see as the potential replacements. These are not adding new, this is just replacing what we have. And what we did with each and every vehicle, we took the ICMA and the National Public Works and Engineering benchmark standards to give you at least a guideline to where the vehicles were asking for replacement, where they stand against those benchmarks. And at the bottom of each slide, you can see that what we're trying to highlight here is what's wrong with the vehicle, why it's not worth keeping anymore, why its cost of operation or downtime is more than what it's worth, and it's time to replace it. And if you look at the benchmarks versus what the miles on the vehicles, it's really a lot of credit to our maintenance department. Some of these vehicles should have been retired 8-10 years ago. They've exceeded their, we're highlighting the, that's daylight coming through the other side of the truck. So, I mean, some of these vehicles should have been retired a long time ago. So there's a little bit of a catch-up this year, but I think that the numbers will even out over the next coming years. And here again, what you're looking at, we've tried to itemize that to specific. We didn't just use the benchmarks to say, this truck has so many miles, it's time for a new one, or it's 10 years old by the benchmark. We physically pulled it in the shop, myself, Frank Serbone, George Snyder, input from George Gravatt, Marty Kelly, and we looked at each vehicle and said, okay, how many times a day is it broke down, or how many, what's the whole deal? We looked at the frames, the suspensions, engines. Some of these trucks are on second and third engines and transmissions. So it was a rather comprehensive.
The only observation I have is, in at least the 4 years I've been here, it seems like we have bought just a fleet of vehicles for DPW. I mean, every year we've approved new trucks, new this, new that. I mean, is the fleet just that old that in spite of all these acquisitions and the millions that we bonded for to buy new stuff, we're just that far behind? I mean, am I right, Mr. Filiatro? We've spent millions on new dump trucks and snow plows, and it just seems like we would have bought a small village worth of equipment.
I think Mr. Serbone might be in a position to answer
Yes.
that a little bit.
There you go.
Yeah, I have an inventory. Do I need a microphone, or is it okay?
Yeah.
Got it recorded, Frank.
We have a truck inventory that was just updated January 5th of '07. And we have 23 heavy-duty trucks with plows. 19 of them have sanders. 4 of them are 12 years or older. We have light-duty trucks, 11 light-duty trucks with plows. 0 of the trucks have sanders. 4 of them are 12 years or older. And it just goes on, every department. But what happens is every year, we'll only be awarded a few trucks, and then the other ones get pushed back to the next year. And it's just an ongoing cycle. There's going to have to be a point in time where you're just going to have to bite the bullet. Somebody's going to have to say, okay, well, let's get caught up here. And then when that happens, you'll start to see a decrease over the years of cost. But it's every year, if we ask for 8 vehicles, which are all justified, and now we have pictures, to show you, until we get caught up on these vehicles, it's going to happen every year, Mr. Mayor. It's just going to keep getting pushed back and back and back, and every year the same questions are going to come up.
Okay.
And I do have a chart on a 5-year capital plan that's going to show that this year would be $1,170,000 if everything we're requesting is purchased. Next year, in '08, it would drop to $655,000. And then in '09, it would drop to $345,000.
Mayor, if
So
I
what you-
could, for just a moment.
Sure.
Frank, when we did our tour down in your garage, the deputy mayor and Mrs. Dalton and I, you showed us, there were, I believe it was a Jeep that was up on a lift where the entire frame was rotted out?
Yeah, what happens is years ago, this township used to use sand for the roads. Sand doesn't do anything.
Right.
So we switched over to salt. At that point, once we switched over to salt, it just corrodes, and it's something that has to be tolerated. It corrodes the undercarriages of not only the cars, police cars, trucks, everything. It just destroys the equipment. That's why, if you recall, when I took you and showed you some of the older trucks we have, they have steel bodies. And what we've done over the past couple of years, quite a few years now, we've been buying stainless steel bodies.
Right,
Which are
that's
not
what we
gonna be
looked at.
affected.
We went, the old trucks are the ones with the red,
Yep, that's right.
with the red
And we
backs
didn't have a
on them.
corrosion problem, excuse me, years ago, because of the sand. But once we switched to salt and calcium chloride, and as a matter of fact, we just purchased 5 new Jeeps. And what I do now, I personally, before I release any vehicles, I undercoat them. I purchase cans of undercoating from a local Napa dealer, and I put a suit on, and I have a mask, and I undercoat them before I release them to try to help with the problem of corrosion. As a matter of fact, the chief was talking about police cars before that I pulled. The frames on 5 of those cars, and the forward right side of the frames themselves have huge holes in them from corrosion. So I called body shops to see if they could plate these, and none of them would want to touch it because of the liability.
Right.
Can't patch them?
Well, that's what I'm talking about with the plating. The liability involved, if you patch them and God forbid they get in an accident.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so again, this gets back to the idea that we're going to roll up our entire fleet in one package for you to make some decisions as to, what the priorities are based on our collective recommendations. Frank, you might want to talk about the next item, the bay lift.
Yeah, Mr. Walsh is familiar with this one. We have one in-ground truck lift at the shop right now. It's a 22,000-pound capacity. We need at least one more in-ground lift, and the reason why we're requesting an in-ground lift, it's a lot faster setting up for the trucks. The capacity is it's 60,000 pounds. It could hold a fully loaded salt truck if there's any repairs needed. Currently what we do, being that we only have the one lift, is we'll just jack up the front of a car, put a couple of jacks, the front of the truck, put a couple of jack stands under it if we have a hydraulic hose problem or something, and the guys have to crawl under there right now.
So understand, if we have any of our trucks that are fully loaded with salt, when they break down, to get them back on the road, we have to mechanically lift them, manually lift them with the,
You're right.
hand cranks
We do not
and
have a
stuff.
lift that's capable of lifting them up.
Let me, as you're hearing this, bear in mind that at the staff level, when we talked about preparing your budget and envisioning what sort of investments we want to make, the direction is that let's get really good at the basic things we do. Let's focus our investments in those areas. So I think, this year we rearranged our resources to really focus on leaf collection, and we got a lot of good input on that. And we want to, knock that out. Earlier in the year, we really focused on litter control and the signs that were all over the community. So we're trying to move from one basic service to the other and do that extraordinarily well. So, we want to build on the leaf collection, and we definitely want to maintain the quality of our snow removal. And based on my conversations with an analysis of what happens in neighboring towns, there's a great deal of pride in how we had been doing snow removal. But with the growth of the town, it's become harder and harder, and the reliance on outside consultants has increased and increased, outside providers. And we want to make sure that, we're operating as efficiently as possible. And you get a lot of breakdowns after, the first 4 or 5 inches of snow. And we want to get those vehicles in and out as fast as possible. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Frank.
Could I just speak about the personnel for the vehicle maintenance department quickly?
Go right ahead.
As you've seen with the other departments, everybody's requesting vehicles. Well, vehicle maintenance is kind of separate from everything else. We work out of Public Works, but we're responsible for the entire fleet of vehicles. You're now talking about getting a dredger. Well, every time I hear a new vehicle coming online, I'm saying to myself, how are we going to repair this? How am I going to have the manpower? We do need more mechanics to just try to keep up with what we have. The police department, they received, I believe it was this past year, 13 new vehicles. They didn't take any out of service. So you had an increase in 13 police vehicles, trying to maintain. The new ones are easy for now, for the first couple of years. But those 13 had 110, 120 hard hours on them, hard miles on them. And, trying to keep up is becoming a burden. So instead of getting the vehicles done in 2 or 3 days, now they're taking a week or 2 weeks. And I like to turn over the vehicles as fast as I possibly can. When they come in, I like to get them back to the departments. But we just don't have the manpower to do that. And as the township increases in its fleet, we need to increase the number of mechanics we also have to maintain the equipment.
But as we replace older vehicles, did you also just say that the maintenance of them goes down also?
When you replace them, but we're talking about additions to the fleet. Okay, like I said, the police department added 13 vehicles. They're looking to get, I don't know what it was, 5 more smaller vehicles.
Did you just take them off the?
I pulled some of them out, but the total number of vehicles that we maintain is 304. That includes police department, SWAT, OEM vehicles, Public Works, for all the first aid equipment in the town, engineering, planning, and code facility vehicles, the new first aid that they're coming up with in the police department. It's just growing. It's, like I said, it's 304 pieces of equipment with 5 guys to do the hands-on work.
Do you need more people or a lift, Frank?
I need both. I do need both.
If you had your choice, which would you put at the top of the list?
It would be the lift, so I wouldn't hurt any of the guys that are down there, because they are getting older, and, back injuries, it just becomes a dangerous safety situation.
Safety first.
But they're getting wiser,
Oh, yeah.
older and wiser.
And it does take a little longer, when you're 50 years old, getting underneath a vehicle now.
Okay, just trying to get close to 12 o'clock as possible. Can you just talk a little bit about the brake lathe? Why we would need that?
Okay, the brake lathe, what it is if any of you have ever had brake jobs done on your cars, you'll go in and they'll tell you that your rotors need to be turned, okay? What this is, we have a brake lathe that could cut rotors off of the vehicle. You have to take them off of the vehicle. What this is a brake lathe that will turn the rotors while they're on the vehicle. All you'll have to do is remove the tire, remove the caliper, bolt up the brake lathe, and it will cut the rotors. It will save time. It will cut the time, especially on your four-wheel drive vehicles, where removing the rotors becomes quite timely on a four-wheel drive vehicle. Well, with this, you won't have to remove it. You just remove your tire, you remove your caliper, you bolt this brake lathe up, and it'll cut it right on the vehicle. And I believe the expense was, $7,000.
Jeff, you want to handle this one?
Okay, I'll try to make this real quick and sweet. Our current wash bay is not a bay, it's a wash station outdoors. Immediate to we have an oil grease separator built into the concrete platform for there. And when vehicles are washed, it's a little difficult in the winter months, but anyway, there are 2 storm drains about less than 50 feet away. Coming in 2009, stormwater regs say you can't let any of this stuff go to the stormwater drain.
The only
The wash
comment-
bay is not a real ideal situation there. We're behind the times.
The only comment I'll make is this came up last year, and maybe it's just not practical, but Lakewood just built and installed one. So, and there could be good technical reasons why, but they're just not that far. I mean, we can't come up with some interlocal arrangement where...
I've already
we
spoken
use-
with the director of Lakewood about it. He said that they hope to start offering that sometime this coming year. He didn't have an exact date.
But wouldn't we want to wait and maybe try and use their wash bay before we go and buy our own?
Yeah.
And I'm not, please, you know your business better than I do. I'm just trying to think like a taxpayer would think, which is if they got one in the next town, why would we want to build our own? You don't have to answer it now, and
Right.
again, you're the
Okay.
experts, so I don't mean to,
It's a very viable option as an alternative time. Practicality-wise, some doesn't work out. Well, you want to wash it today and get it done, they don't have the time to take you today. Driving time isn't that exorbitant there, but it is a factor.
This may not be an issue for this year, Mayor, but it's just something we have to keep in front of
Sure.
ourselves because it is a new regulation.
Well, no matter what, in 2009, we were not going to be able to wash them outside, no matter what.
Can't wash them inside either.
You can't wash them inside.
You cannot, no further discharge, the criteria is discharge into the stormwater system.
Okay.
And since we don't have a sanitary line to the facilities, we're kind of between a rock and a hard spot.
Either way, it's still going to be reflected in the budget, be it, the cost of the interlocal or
course.
the payoff on our investment, but it is something we need to plan for.
What this system is not a new building, not a solid structure, a canopy-type affair, as cheaply as we could possibly try and get by. Basically, what it does, with the funds, if this is decided to be appropriate, would allow us to redesign the platform out there and install some filtration equipment so that all the water that's used as wash water is treated and back out to the pad.
Okay.
And then a basic, something like a fuel island shelter, just to keep rainwater and from washing across the pad down to the storm drain.
Okay, Jeff, would just talk about the next few very briefly, please.
Okay, we'd proposed a purchase of a traffic safety equipment trailer, get all our traffic emergency cones, barrels, worker signs, everything all into one closed trailer where they're very available instead of scattering around the yard. They're here in the back, they're piled up in the back, they're in the corner of the shop. When you need the material out there, especially when there's nighttime calls, it's hasn't been really the best system.
Okay, that wraps up Jeff's presentation, and we're going to get into buildings and grounds next. If you have any questions, I'll be loading up their presentation. If you have any questions about their operating budget.
sure. Are there any questions on Mr. Kramer's operating budget? What J page is that?
15. And all of G3.
All of G3?
The only thing I might suggest to the council, and it's obviously your prerogative, is that we might want to just talk about all of capital collectively,
We usually do.
only because there's going to be so many more vehicles that we see and get, and it's going to be impossible to try and start prioritizing until we hear everybody, but that's certainly the council's.
We have, we're in a unique position this year. We do have a one-shot revenue source from the settlement of FEL. And our strong recommendation is we make investments with that, since that's not going to be recurring. So, Mayor, you're absolutely right. Just let's listen to what all the departments have to say, and then let's weigh it in terms of what you hear from your constituents where investments need to go.
All right, who's up next?
Buildings
Buildings and grounds?
Switch with these. Let's move that down.
Just, okay, Mr. Gravett?
Okay. Go over staffing. Right now, we have one mechanical plant supervisor, a foreman, 3 maintenance workers, 2 laborers, the 4 custodians. The part-time seasonals are what we use to run mail most of the time when they're in. License we have held by our current employees. We have boiler, we have electricians, we have a water system operator, 3 on transfer, pesticide application, and AC, so we can work on the air conditionings. Daily, we run all of our mails between the buildings, each offices to and from the post office, and we clean the buildings. Weekly, we correct recyclings from all the buildings. We collect trash from the bus shelters on the highway and park and ride, and clean the park and ride facilities. Council packets to your homes. Deliveries from purchasing at Central Supply to all departments. Delivery of copy paper to all departments, and collect money at the Alder Road Park Station, pay station. Monthly, pick up and deliver food to the pantry from the county food bank, deliver seniors newsletters to their drop-off points, and inspection of township buildings to include air quality, fire extinguishers, emergency generators, vehicle fueling island, traffic control systems, lighting, general safety lighting, and stormwater facilities.
Just on that safety issue, are we comfortable after the break-in, because that's what it was, this building on January 1st, are we comfortable that we don't have any more safety breaches in this facility?
We put plates on all the access doors around here.
Yearly, we decorate for the holiday seasons, whichever holiday it would happen to be. Service boilers for state inspections, service and inspect the automatic fire detection systems and the fire suppression systems in several of the buildings that we do have. The areas of responsibilities are all the township buildings. Listed there, we have some pictures of all the different buildings, a couple slides. All right. We also maintain certain areas. We've maintained a park and ride, 19 bus shelters along the highway, the traffic control devices, and the park and ride facility. We're responsible for boarding up any vacant properties that the town acquires, or for some reason, even if a tax lien or something's on them. As needed, we do all the in-house repairs to the buildings, electrical, heating, cooling, telephone and computer circuits, move all the different departments' files and supplies they request, minor renovations to offices, and general upkeep of the township buildings and properties. Upcoming projects, capital projects to complete. We're going to complete the North Howell Little League here shortly. We're going to go into the courthouse and do some renovations for their, I guess it's a licensing requirement.
Right, a previous capital improvement.
Completion of the Office of Emergency Management. They have built a structure, but they have no interior offices. We'll be going in there to complete that. Got to replace a boiler at DPW and installation of filtered water coolers.
On that issue, with respect to the OEM building, I know that the veterans of foreign war are anxiously waiting to get into the old OEM building. Do we know when they're going to get that?
We'll be talking about in the capital as we go through the process here.
Just to give you, from a big picture point of view, the OEM building was not spec'd out architecturally, the interior. So in the last budget in September, in the capital, we authorized some funds to do architectural work. That's been done. That's been approved by the construction office. And so now we are preparing bid documents to get the materials we need for the division to start doing work out there. But because of the frustration that the VFW is feeling and wanting to get to that building, I authorized the purchase of 2 storage containers. And OEM has been moving their equipment out over the past month, and I believe they even have a crew organized this weekend doing more clearing out of that building.
Some of the building, tax revenue building, we've got a couple projects slated for here. The first one would be a roof replacement. Shingles are failing. It's been requested since 2003, and this is a mandatory.
We agreed last year that this is something we can hold off for maybe 1 more year. I don't know how clear that image is, but the roof is really, you know, this is it. We have to fix it this year.
We've had several leaks. We've been doing patching. It's at the point now, if we step on the roof everywhere as we step, we're repatching just to get up to take care of a patch. It's there. It needs to be done. The tax revenue computer room. Currently, it's designed, it's off the central air conditioning system of the building. The amount of equipment in there needs cooling continuously, so we have to leave the doors open, leaving the servers vulnerable to security breaches. We suggest putting in central air conditioning for that particular room, securing that room down so everything's secure, and that's your backup to the township system there, and it's wide open to general public. Police department, we've got a safety issue here. The front steps are scaling or spalling. You can see we've made several patches out over the years. We've had several requests by the town insurance carrier. They want that repaired. They also want a set of center handrails. I believe it's 86 inches is the max we can have between handrails. We're almost up to 20 feet on that set of staircases. Same thing at the library. They want to send a center set of rails. It's a safety issue.
If I could just interrupt you for 1 second, my apologies. If I don't leave now, I'm going to miss my window to see my mom, so I need to excuse myself. Just as a reminder, we do need to open the meeting to the public at some point and probably just revisit whatever the next meeting dates are. So my apologies, I have to excuse myself.
Joe.
Ready?
Eye appointment.
This is the safety issue.
not a
We're
wand.
expecting, majority of this is going to the repair of the front steps, the concrete work, it's $35,000. DPW, same thing, we got a couple of projects here. First, we've got an in-ground telephone wire. Our campus, we have in-ground fiber and in-ground copper between all of our town buildings. The piece between the senior center and the Public Works building is failing. It's a 50-pair cable, we're down to 15 usable pairs right now. That's what our phone system runs on, our alarms, and some radio circuits. It fails on a daily basis. You see, we've got, in the center, there's one open pit. That's one of the spots we found a,
I would like Tom to go back to that last thing. There was something I wanted to read while you were talking about it.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
there's multiple splices that wire's been hit by different contractors that came on the facility and hit our wire. Once you make a splice in the ground, moisture eventually gets in there. That's what's happening. The cables are failing. We suggest replacing that cable from point to point.
You said contractors came in?
Well, yeah, we'd either had them in for the wash down pad, they just hit it again, they splice it, it's a 30-year-old cable. It's not all recent damage, and it's just the moisture's finally got within inside the casings, and they're failing.
Okay.
It's not an expensive thing. As you see it on there, there was a price, we can start routing. We need to get signals from up here at Town Hall down to Public Works. A lot of them are dedicated circuits, so we'd actually pay the telephone company for a dedicated line back to their CO, which is Farmingdale, and then back out. It's roughly $40 a month. It's a lot easier just to put the cable in the ground out here ourselves.
So
and be done.
we can take care of that problem for $8,000.
Yeah. DPW septic, the system's 30 years old. There's a few more employees than we had 30 years ago. It needs to be expanded, but we need to look as an overall plan of what to do for septic for this entire complex. We put a Band-Aid on the police's septic last year. We're going to do something similar to the Public Works this year. There's really not a septic system on Town Hall Seniors and Fire Bureau. They sort of just run to a large tank. All right. That needs something in the future as a planning thing. DPW has a lot of rotted doors. The building, like I said, is 30 years old. We keep them painted up, but just either the salt and everything that goes on down there. A lot of them are, the interior welds of the steel doors are missing, so the doors are very flexible. You can shimmy in and get in and out. So we recommend replacement of those doors. Lighting upgrades to the Police Athletic League and the library. The rest of our buildings have been done. They're the only two that are outstanding. It's a money savings option. GPU currently has got some rebate programs. We go in, we retrofit the fixtures, put new bulbs and ballasts and new electronic stuff in them. Cuts down electricity cost. Saves in heating because you're using less electricity. The dome lights at the library are an older style. They're a mercury bulb. That bulb is actually not longer available.
Right.
So we need to retrofit them one way or the other. And I think Jeff will admit that it pays for itself quite rapidly with all the other ones
We've done it before.
When we did the other building, says Town Hall and all, we calculate out it's just slightly over a 3-year payback in the electric savings.
Payback in full over 3 years?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a substantial savings electricity for our lighting.
GPU gives you a rebate right up front, and then the rest of it does pay back. Okay. Engineering, planning, and code. There's a couple. It's an older building. It's got many problems. Heating. It's got single pane glass windows.
How much is the dynamite for that building?
Well, we're leaving that up to you. But right now, we're looking at, we have some air conditioning problems down there. They've got a lot of window units or wall mounts, same different little design. I can't tell you the age of them. They were here before I started 20 years ago, and I'm assuming they've been there for a long time before that. We've already had one that's made a major fire down there, or a minor fire that caused $1 million in damage between paperwork and structure. We can't find units to fit in the existing openings, so we need to cut out the wall openings and redesign the locations. That doesn't do them all. That gets us enough to get up and running again. But we're thinking there's a major plan going on, so we don't want to waste good money into bad. We just need to keep it running until something happens. That's a picture of some of the older units. Same thing here. This is the engineering planning building's computer room. It's a basement closet. And there are a couple pictures of servers. A little hard to see. It's dark. That room needs air conditioning as well. It's got a dust problem being in the basement. It's got open ceilings. We wanted to put a drop ceiling in there, insulate it a little bit, protect the server equipment, be able to secure, lock up the room so the servers are protected. Seniors, siding replacement. Currently, the clapboard's all deteriorating. The water actually leaks through the clapboard and comes inside the walls. We've got some small sheetrock leaks. We try to keep nailing it back, but it's dry and brittle and doesn't like that.
If I can pause for just a minute, one of the things when we look at the big picture of the Capitol is Director of Senior Services has asked for an addition. So perhaps with an addition on, we can eliminate any, and we can incorporate all siding into the addition if that gets council's approval.
You're assuming the addition's going to happen,
No,
correct?
I'm saying if the addition gets council approval,
We
can
wouldn't do
incorporate
the other. We
siding
could
into
probably
that.
release one.
Okay.
All right. Here this was also requested through the director, but we'll put it in. The existing door at the top of the stairwell, or ramp, is where most of the people enter and exit. We're requesting electronic door. Most people, if it'd be, you'd operate as normal. There'd be a handicap button there for people that just couldn't operate the door themselves manually. They electronically open the door. Library, replace some ceiling tiles. They're from 85. They're starting to sag, discolor a little bit. Carpet, it's from 85. Just things to be looking at. Park and ride. Last year we put in a new pay station out there. There's a picture of it. That currently did away with 30-some parking meters that we had. Everybody used the one central pay station. It's working out quite well. We've actually increased revenue on our collection routes. We've got more people using, because we've got numbered spaces out there. Possibly in the future, look to upgrade and put additional units so you have a backup system. So if that one, for some reason, goes down and we can't get it back up the very next, or that day, we'd have an additional collection. You could use it and actually start recording the whole lot. We can either give out pass cards, magnetic cards, so everybody have a card, they'd go swipe in. We'd be able to come up with some kind of tallies of how many people is using our facility on a day-to-day basis, whether we need to think about upgrading. And just some statistics would be available that way.
This was a very significant project this year that Buildings and Grounds undertook, and created a lot of efficiencies for us.
Here's the OEM house, this is the original house that they're in now, moving out of. Needs improvements. The building is unsafe and unusable as is. It includes a new heat, new roof, asbestos removal, structural repairs, barrier-free accessibility, removal of an oil tank, repair and replace a damaged sheetrock and insulation. There's some pictures. Hopefully we can see them.
George, are we giving that building to the VFW? Is that going to be,
You can't.
give us $1?
We can't give buildings away. This is a.
I must forewarn you about one thing,
wait,
too.
wait.
You cannot improve that building for the VFW. If that's a township building that needs improving,
Right.
that you then lease to them or whatever, you need to draw a fine line here. You cannot be investing $137,000 that he says the building needs for the benefit of the VFW. You can't use tax dollars to do that.
Right, but at the same,
But it is a township building, so you need a fine line here. If it needs improvements, okay, you can lease the building to them for a nominal fee or $1 a year or whatever, once it's occupiable,
Can
but
you
you
put
need to be
that one
careful.
slide back, please? All right, so that building right now is not ADA compliant.
Nope, the ramps don't meet the current codes, the back stairs don't. Inside, there's multiple steps from floor to floor, different landing levels. The structure inside, the main floor was built as a house. It
Right.
doesn't meet the requirements for load capacity of a commercial building, so you'd have to reinforce all the floorings.
So if we didn't do anything, if we just said to the VFW, you can lease this building for $1 a day, they could actually come back and sue us under the ADA because they'd say it's a township-owned building and we're leasing it and it's not ADA compliant.
That's correct.
I'd like to ask a question here.
Well, I'm asking that question. Is that,
I would
could
just-
that actually happen? Or if somebody got sick there, could they?
I don't think you could, I
You
don't
can't
think you
lease it with
could lease it
asbestos.
to them in the condition it's in.
So why do they think they're going to be able to move right in?
That's my question.
Yeah.
That was a
building-
conversation that
building doesn't have
preceded
heat in
me.
it.
Well-
That building, the heat, the furnace, what's been, 4 or 5 years ago, died. It had CO leaks. At that time, it was thought to have been being sold to another location that's around them, large water company.
I need to ask something here, and I want a definitive answer. What was promised to people from the VFW?
I don't think.
Does anybody know if anything was promised to them? Because somewhere along the line, they're wondering whether they can move into a building that we own, the township owns, that's not habitable. Correct?
I think, well, to answer your question, it's been my understanding from the day I started that that a decision was made. Where that was made, I don't know. But I think there are some fine points that have to be worked out with our township attorney with respect to what the legal arrangements can be. Okay?
I would like to, I need definitive answers on this, Mr. Chinesky, okay? I'd like to know what was promised, when it was promised.
To whom?
I think
to
it's
whom it was
really,
promised, and what is legal.
I think it would be very easy. All you need to do is pull the minutes up from the conversation, because it was, I don't think that there was anything really per se promised directly, but I think if you pull the minutes up from when they came before this board, it's right in, it's very easily, it's in writing.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have no issue, but in order to make this building
kind of
habitable.
like the potato barn issue. I mean, just so that you understand, and I've been here for, potato barn came before me, so it's and the Grange, so it's the same kind of situation. I don't believe anything was promised to anyone. I think it was a conversation, hypothetical speaking conversation, what if we knew that this building had tremendous problems, the reason OEM wasn't in there. But there was a long discussion, so I know that clearly, if you go back into the minutes, you will get a definitive answer on that.
We currently lease buildings to like athletic leagues and stuff. I believe that's covered, athletic groups are covered under a separate area of the law.
They have to have their own policy.
So I think this is going to require some research on the attorney's part.
Well, I have a question then. Where is OEM going?
OEM,
New building.
there's a new structure next to the
Land of
Land of
Pines.
Land of
Pines
Pine
School.
School.
Okay, so OEM has a new structure to go to.
Correct.
I got a packet, and I'm sure you guys got it too, a letter
It's in
from
yesterday's
the
package.
VFW, wondering if they could move in yesterday,
Yeah.
that they want to make it a museum and everything, and they're under the impression that they're getting the keys.
And a turnkey operation in the building,
You know, so I
ready to
don't.
walk in tomorrow.
Oh.
Trust me.
I'm serious, that's what.
Trust me, I'm in the American Legion, VFW, American Legion, same difference, but who told them they were getting this building?
You know,
I
guys,
think-
not to, I don't want to belabor this. I just think that this is something we need to take offline at another time and get back to the budget.
Yeah, if I can suggest, maybe if council would assign a delegate from the council, in preparing this budget, Mr. Cravette did an analysis of the building, what would be needed, but now is the appropriate time to do that analysis because we're doing a budget. So maybe now would be appropriate time while OEM is starting to get ready to sit down with the VFW, our township
Mr.
attorney,
Howell ought to do
a
that.
representative from the council, and Mr. Cravette
I
to
nominate
talk
Mr.
about the
Howell.
issues. And this way, they're part of the conversation, and we're not talking about it without them here.
I was only in the Marine Corps for a driveway, as Mr. Howell will tell you. I got out at the end of the driveway.
Okay.
All right, yeah, I'll take care of that.
Okay. Now we got a couple of equipment requests. Confined space equipment, this would be township-wide. Be for confined space and trench. We have some stuff, we actually, just down in the bottom corner, we actually just had an inspection from the Department of Labor on last Monday, and they came in and cited us for outdated equipment. We'd already knew that, we were trying to get by till then. But if we show him that we're moving forward with the budget, they'll be quite pleased. We suggest, again, getting a trailer to secure the equipment, and the equipment we need: generators, meters, air equipment, There's a trench, some boards and stuff that we'd use for that. Respirators, that's another, just an opening for a be a confined space area. Air supplies, and then the far one, some tripods and rigging equipment.
We already have personnel that are certified for confined space.
We're actually in the midst, we've had stuff where it's supposed to be ongoing and current. We're redoing it. We're coming back up to speed on a lot of our training. We've been doing a lot of training recently.
I saw some extra money in here for training this year.
That's some of it.
That's what some of it is?
Yep.
Okay.
Also, here's another piece of equipment. We were suggesting purchasing of a dump trailer to be towed behind our trucks. In the bottom left corner is a picture of our standard buildings grounds truck. It's a utility body pickup. We use the dump trailer to haul materials and dump it instead of shoveling it out of the back of the trucks. Winter times it'd be used to put a sander in instead of putting it in the back of the trucks. If you just go back 1 minute, the picture to the lower right is a picture of the truck after salt gets in them. It's the original picture you've seen before that the rust hole blows through. We try to keep the sanders out of our utility bodies. They're expensive bodies. We don't like to replace them.
Was that picture used before? Is that the one you
Yes.
see yet?
Yep. It's the same
Using
picture.
pictures twice on me.
It's
okay?
cheaper that way. We're saving you some money. Here we're suggesting replacing a Crown Vic from '96 that's used daily for our custodial service to go to a minivan to help alleviate the possibility of some back injuries. We want to use it, put a ramp on the side. We use heavy floor cleaning machines that we rotate between buildings because we don't have them for every building. That way we'd be able to just push them up inside instead of picking them up and laying them down inside the trunks and then picking them back out.
Mr. Filiaccio, could that be put in the county bond also, the van?
All vehicles.
That's all this equipment type items. You cannot do improvements to buildings, infrastructure improvements, but equipment, all that can go through the Monmouth County.
Thank you, sir. I just want to keep on having to be reinforced into my skull here.
One of the last ones here is a box truck with a lift gate. As you've seen, we do a lot of moving of materials, food, lumber, supplies. A lot of it's due to weather. If it's raining, it's a little difficult to move copy paper and office supplies. And food, they get a little upset when we come out and haul out the food in our rainy day and try to throw a tarp over it to try to keep it dry. The food banks actually told us we're not supposed to be there with open trucks, but it's what Public Works has. That's what we use to haul it. If we get a box truck, we could eliminate, a lot of times we have to send 2 or 3 trucks, depending on the size of the orders. Put them in multiple trucks, send multiple guys. This way we'd send one guy with a hand pallet jack, load the truck, come back, and we could unload it with one guy, eliminating man hours and trucks running back and forth.
I would just like to point one thing out before we get into the questions. And these slides were developed in referring back to my notes from when I sat through this budget process last year. I wasn't even employed. I was just hired, and I was encouraged to come and just watch the presentation. And from those notes last year, I asked George to please let the council know what it is that they do day in and day out, because what I sensed from the council was a real frustration with a couple of capital projects, like the OEM building, irrigation at the Hoffman Field, all these sort of things which are sort of just given to buildings and grounds to do these things. They take over projects that contractors don't do, like the Echo Lake building. So this year they had on their plate to do the OEM building, but because of the architectural issues, it wasn't their fault that those things weren't in place. That's not at their responsibility. But now they're ready to go. At the same time, something we didn't plan for that we incurred mid-year is the North Howell Little League building. So, you know, these guys have their hands full doing a standard routine work, and then they get other things put on top of them. And it's not a complaint. It's just to acknowledge that a lot gets handed to them, and they deliver for us.
Anything from anybody else on the council?
George, I just got a question. I'm looking at
Where you at?
$72,000 to do the roof on a tax building?
That's if we end up going out, depending on our workload, it needs to be done as soon as we get the money. That's gonna, if we can do it in-house, it's gonna be substantially cheaper, depending on our workload where we're at. If not, you're talking architect, you're talking $10,000 just to get the architect to come in and do the bid specs, and then we want to make sure we have enough to get it done.
One of the frustrations expressed to me this year by the public and the council is that we have bonds for which we haven't used the money. And quite often, it's because, you know, the suggestion is that we can do it in-house. I'll give you a perfect example, would be the an irrigation system. You know, $60,000 was bonded for to do an irrigation system. It was assigned in-house, but in-house was never asked to do an analysis. And when we finally did, we realized that we can't do it in-house. So my direction to the staff was, if you can't do it, we have a responsibility and obligation to say it so the money doesn't sit there. Also, for our own professional image, there can't be an expectation that we will do it and it just never gets done. It's just not fair to us as professionals to not let you know that sometimes we have to let the private companies handle this for us if it's going to get done.
That is going to need substantial sheathing as well, not just the shingles. It's leaked that bad.
Yeah,
that the
because, I'm
sheathing's-
looking and I'm saying,
If it was
that's
shingles.
an awful lot of shingles,
Yeah,
72 grand.
the sheathing's what's going to start, and you're
Ice
going
shield
to,
is
you're going to,
big money.
That's a lot of roof.
How many square feet is that roof?
it was 40 square, I think, somewhere's in the area, 40 to 50
So
square.
you're talking about close to $285 a square, just for a regular roof with ice sheeting, just for a roof across the street from your sister. $285 a square, that's a house. So you're looking, you know,
Yeah.
And this includes, this is a complete project. There's water stains inside. We try to keep things hidden as best we can in our buildings. We keep them as good as we can.
Okay.
But when
Yeah.
we're done, we want to go in and finish the building off, and you got no remnants of a bad roof.
Okay, just to sort of bring us back to a big picture, you know, typically we like to start the budget and say, look, if you accommodate everybody's request, here's how many tax points you're looking at. We can't possibly do that at this point because of the reval issue and aid money and other things in a year-end financial statement. Next time we get together, we'll have a better sense of that, and we'll be able to give you some preliminary projections. Don't be frightened by them because, you know, you're hearing now from the departments what they need. Again, let me reinforce that I know you have to weigh what's in the best interest of the town. And when that picture really starts to crystallize, the pencils will sharpen and we'll try to compromise and get to a point where we can move forward.
Anything else?
No, good.
I believe the next meeting's Wednesday, the 21st, the next budget meeting,
That's correct. And we,
6:30?
6:30, right?
yes, and we do have to open up to the public, Deputy Mayor.
So we need to close. We don't,
We
just
do,
open it to the public.
you do need to officially open it to the public.
I'll
So-
move that.
I'll second.
Anybody wishing to speak?
You just-
Anybody from the public, if they'd like to speak? God
Yeah.
bless. Be safe. Tell them I'd like to speak to them.
You're not signed up. You can't speak.
Well, we only have, we need to hear from Ms. Sergeant Solly from the public. We're gonna lose our,
I think we may need a roll call, Deputy Mayor.
roll call open, please.
All right, I move that we open the meeting.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mrs. Showmaker?
She had to leave?
Mr. Walsh?
Yes,
Mayor DeBella?
He's gone.
he had to leave also.
Is this on? You can hear me?
Yes.
All right, Sandra Solly, Birdsall Road. My concern is the OEM building. They talked about selling that a couple of years ago, and I remember Bruce Davis saying it was like going to be $250,000 if we sold it. I think it's an acre of land. Now, my reval man just told me that an acre in Howell is worth $225,000. So at that alone, it's worth $225,000 because it's an acre. Now, I'm in the Howell Historical Society, and the Mackenzie Museum was deeded to the township on her death. We leased the building, I believe, for 25 years for $1. We are responsible for the inside, painting, whatever, but they do repair work, you know, electrical and whatever. If the OEM wants this building, VFW wants this building, sell it to them. Because I can't see putting $137,000 into a building to make it ADA compliant. If they want it, we had to fix the building, the Mackenzie Museum. People raised money and brought that up to standards. They put electrical in it, plumbing, at the time, and we're going back to probably 25 years. I'm not sure because I wasn't in it then. But there's no way with people crying about the taxes that we should be putting $137,000 into a house that we're going to let somebody use for $1 a year, $1 for 25 years. If they want it, work out a deal with them. But I can't see that. I really can't. There's got to be a lot of buildings in Howell that they could have space. And the potato barn, we still own that, and nothing's happened with that. That was supposed to be the Historical Society building. There's enough space in there. The wrestling team was supposed to get part of that. Let the VFW have it if we're not going to use it. I mean, if we have buildings that are sitting and we're not using them, sell them. Okay?
We
Jeffrey?
did at one point in time have a willing buyer in the New Jersey border behind there. And I do believe she's accurate. It was 225,000 something. They were willing to bid. Their intention was to build another entrance for those two water plants. They were going to tear the building down. They just wanted the land. I don't know. Certainly, I would think it would pay at this point in time. Maybe we pursue and see if they are still a willing buyer.
Mr. Dalton?
No, I agree with Jeff. You know,
At least
trust me
you
when I'm
know.
telling you, I don't want to see the VFW not have a home. I know the American Legion here in Howell has been trying to build on a piece of property that they own and can't build on it. So, you know, everybody's
I
looking
think
for
you
a
should
home.
know all the options
Right.
before you make your final decision.
Well, that's why I asked earlier. I asked for the information on what was promised to whom, when was it promised, in what condition was it promised. I want to know all the facts, because I don't want to tell the VFW, you know, the answer's no now. I want to look into it and really see what's going on here. They plan on moving into a building like yesterday, that we were just told needs $137,000 just to get it up to code. So we will have to make some decisions there, but I want to know what was said first. By whom, to whom?
And I also wanted to say about the vehicles, if we own 304 vehicles and you expect them to be driven to Lakewood, to be cleaned, that sounds like a lot of manpower, driving to Lakewood, waiting in Lakewood, coming back to Howell. And I would probably think that it would be cheaper for us to build our own facility and down the road instead of driving, because now they're saying they don't have enough manpower. So now we're going to have a guy driving cars back and forth all day. You know, I just can't see that. And then I want to ask about, I heard somebody said that when they buy a new vehicle, they just add it to the fleet and they don't get rid of the old ones. If we've got all these cars, 304 cars, are they all running and are we paying insurance on all of them? Because if they're not, get rid of them. I don't think we've had a car auction in a long time.
We have in the yard, we have a growing inventory of vehicles we have to auction off,
Get rid of them.
and we will.
All right, well, I
Good
would
suggestion.
believe too, I'm sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor, but, you know, Mrs. Sally, I think something you have to take into account too is if Mr. Sabone's taking them off the road because they're unsafe, I don't even believe we can auction them off, because then if somebody gets in an accident in it, we're liable.
I don't know if that's true, because we all buy cars as is, and we don't go back and sue.
It's certainly something we will look into,
Right.
Ms. Solly. Every point you've raised makes sense.
Thank
We're
you.
mindful that it is the people's money that is being
Right.
spent, and we are not about to be freely
I mean,
borrowing against it or
it's only-
spending on things that aren't appropriate.
It's only a drop in the bucket, and that police overtime, somebody's got to scrutinize that.
Every drop in the bucket counts.
I mean, really, what draws that overtime? What's going on? Are there nice, accurate records? Is it like not Howell Day anymore because they're not doing it on the 4th of July? Excuse me, not Howell Day. But, you know, it's not being done on the holiday, then we're not paying triple time and a half or whatever. And then the issue with the extra policemen for court. Well, court's 2 days a week. So if they're going to have 3 extra policemen, then they have to work somewhere else 3 days a week. So where are they going to go? I mean, they still have to have an assigned job if they're not guarding the courthouse.
Well, Mr. Sally, I think if you heard the chief, he said that all of the 3 officers that will be in the courthouse would have to be overtime, because you would have to take road officers off the road.
No, I
And you don't want them
understood.
off the road.
No, I understood that, but
So that's going to wind up being mandatory overtime.
saying that the police department is right there anyway, it's not like all
But the
courts.
officers are on the road.
No, I'm talking about policemen that are in the building at the time.
But it's did say you have to look at it contractually.
Right, well, that's what
None of
I'm
us
asking.
have
They
total
can't, they can't
knowledge.
be in the building doing accident reports or doing investigations. Now the court has mandated they be standing in the hallway, standing in the courtroom. So
It's different.
it's different. They're not doing the work they're supposed to do, so you still have loss of production.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying, now you want 2 at the door for metal detectors? Is that what you're saying?
That's the court order.
That's actually, I can speak to that because I sit on some committees with regard to my profession.
Right.
That is a mandate from the state that unfortunately many municipalities were hit with.
Isn't it also required now that the judges, the thing there be bulletproof so he can jump behind it in case somebody has a gun? The desk. Right? Yeah.
And I wanted to ask another question.
Pardon me.
We have a bond
Hold on.
detention, oh, excuse me.
Yeah, well, we're going to stop the meeting if he leaves.
I have to go. My daughter
Oh.
has to go to work.
No, I just wanted to ask about the bond detention money that was like $1 million. Is that being used?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Good, okay, thank you.
Anything else from the public?
Motion to adjourn.
Like to-
I'll make the
close?
motion.
Go ahead. Let me close the public portion of the meeting.
So moved?
Roll call.
Mrs.
Need a
Dalton?
second.
Need a second, Michael.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
I'll second.
Mrs. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes. Meeting adjourned.